Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome, welcome. It is so lovely to see you all here. Inflammation definitely seems to be the hot topic for everyone. I think we had like close to 40 people register for this workshop, which is fantastic. So I've actually asked Ronelle just to co-host with me, and she'll keep an eye on the chat. So if you guys ever have any questions, you can throw it in there, and she'll just keep an eye on what's happening and keep us on track as well. Cool. So while we just give others a chance to get here to arrive, I would love for you to just maybe pop in the chat where you're listening in from, and yeah, how are you doing today? It's usually always a good place to start. Let's see what else. Okay. And then I'll just stop my screen share so that we can have that there. All right, so our little workshop for today is all on inflammation. So while you pop into the chat, maybe you want to go grab your water bottle, a cup of tea, let us know where you're coming in from, signing in from. Ronelle will maybe keep an eye on those and just give us a little update in a moment. So while we kind of like all arrive and settle, for those who don't know me, I am Nina Saacks. I am a yoga teacher. I've got a studio in Saacks, except I am not there at the moment. I'm living in Mozambique. But I have amazing teachers who are running that studio. It's been running for nearly, next year will be 19 years. The following year will be 20 years. So just under 20 years. So that's how long I've been playing around with yoga. And have been enjoying as most of us who are in the yoga world, the love-hate relationship that yoga offers us, and all the journeys that go with it. So in 2008, I started Yoga.awakening Africa, which is pretty much this brand. It started off as a yoga magazine, and then it turned into my personal blog, sharing a lot about yoga in South Africa. And now it is pretty much the work that I'm doing as a yoga health coach and sharing all the lessons that I'm learning with you guys. I'm also part of the Academy of Yoga and Ayurveda, where we've got a year-long yoga teacher training course. And that is lovely. I've got 3 fabulous teachers who teach alongside me, Jennifer, Renee, and Pramila. And I mean, yeah, Victoria's here. She's been part of that course years ago, I think, also in 2014 when we did our first one. And Annika, who's also here, she's also taken part in it. It is a great course. I run yoga retreats. I've got a podcast with my friend Nicole on all things healing and yeah, and good for us. I absolutely love traveling. That is, apart from yoga, one of my biggest passions is traveling and seeing the world. I do live on a farm in Mozambique. I love the animals and everything that comes with it. And at the moment, I am a yoga health coach in training. So the reason why I'm doing these free monthly talks is one, that I find that like in this chaotic world that we live, when we start to bring structure and rhythm into our lives, that we can then slowly start to make informed and empowered decisions and choices for ourselves, not just for ourselves, but our family, our businesses, and the communities that we're based in. So this is pretty much why I'm doing what I'm doing. All right, so just a couple of announcements. I'll give you some more information on my annual program that kicks off on Monday. And then on the 13th of August, we're having our next free talk, which is really exciting, where Jennifer Stevens, we're going to be doing Ayurveda and skincare. Literally, we're going to get into our kitchens. We're going to be making a couple of things that we can use for skincare and health. So pop that into your diary already. It'll be Saturday, the 13th of August, 9 o'clock, and join us in our kitchens as we explore some nice beauty tips and just also healthcare recipes. Lovely. All right, Ronelle, do you want to give us a quick little update where everyone is maybe phoning in from? And Let me take it off screen share so that we can actually see everyone. Hold on, you muted. Okay, right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ronal, give us a quick update.
Good morning. We've got 14 participants this morning. So it's Anneke. Hi, Anneke. Anthea. Cherry. Hello, my darling. Colleen. Hello. Danielle Rittel. Dawn Stolz. Fatima. Fiona. Piera. Hello, Piera. Pravina. Tamara. And Victoria. Alrighty. So, and the messages. Let me see. Daniela. Yeah, let's just leave it at that. So we've got 14 participants this morning.
Cool.
So it's a nice group.
Fantastic. And I'm just kind of keeping an eye on the chat, and we've got like from Centurion, Cape Town, Swartland, Claremont. Everyone's around everywhere in South Africa. Fantastic. So a very, very big welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here, joining us and being part of this conversation. It's always just so lovely to, I don't know, start the weekend on a positive note with something good. So we're going to go into a really short grounding practice. One, because I know it helps me settle in to doing workshops like this or presentations like this. And I find that it just kind of brings all our energy together. All right, so you are welcome to turn away from the screen for this so that you don't get distracted by all of us. You're welcome just to close your eyes for a moment. And then feel that you can observe your breath. Just notice the breath as it flows in. And just gently out. So often what happens, I find, when we meet live on Zoom is that our energy is very much up and out. And to me, when I find that we ground and we work with that apana vaya, the downward energy, that it helps us to just settle and become present. So I invite you now to really inhale deep down into the base of your lungs. And as you exhale, imagine breathing out and down to the tip of your tailbone, into your chair, into your seat, wherever it is that you're sitting. So as you inhale, breathe down into the lungs, breathe wide into your lungs. And as you exhale, allow the energy to move down, the awareness to move down. And allow the breath to become slower and longer. And with each exhalation, feel that you can breathe a little further down. So now maybe breathe out and down into your knees. And with the next exhalation, take your breath down to your feet. Breathing out, breathe down into your toes. Just take 3 more breaths like that, where your inhalation is going wide, broad, and deep into the lungs. And your exhalation is going down into your feet. And as we breathe down, that is really what kind of sends the energy down, helps to draw that apana vaya down, makes us feel more grounded, settled. And then from there, lovely, just bring the palms of your hands together, get your hands really nice and warm. Cup them over your eyes, take a deep breath in, slowly out. Start to spread the fingers, allow the light to enter the eyes. Maybe if you've got a window, look out of your window so that you're not looking straight at the screen just yet as you move your hands away. And then as your eyes adjust, you can bring your attention back here and back to us as a lovely group. So again, just a lovely, another warm, warm welcome to each of you here. And what I would love for you to maybe just put into the chat is that this talk is obviously on inflammation. What it is that you're wanting to gain maybe out of this chat, or why it is you're here, or what interests you. And if you just pop that into the chat, and maybe if you have no idea, that's also fine. You can just say, I have no idea why I'm here. Something just, I don't know. My friend told me to be here, so that's why I'm here. But it just means that as I work through the slides, I can maybe navigate and make sure that I am actually addressing it. It might just help us pick up if there's a theme or a topic that goes through, so that I can really make it a lot more pertinent to us being here together today. All right, so as you pop that into the screen, I'll just go back into my little bit of a screen share and literally just have, maybe I'll just pop me in there. There we go. And while you pop into kind of like the chat, what is coming up? Our chat on inflammation is that inflammation is literally like this overall topic. And from there, it can lead to so many of these other disorders or diseases that is depicted here. What I wanted to actually start off with is just like a little bit of background information, in the sense that chronic inflammatory diseases are the most significant cause of death in the world. The World Health Organization ranks chronic disease as the greatest threat to human health. Now, that's not a small statement, that's a big statement. The World Health Organization ranks chronic diseases as the greatest threat to human health. And I'll get to that in a moment. The prevalence of diseases associated with chronic inflammation is anticipated to increase persistently for the next 30 years in the United States. In 2000, nearly 125 million Americans were living with chronic conditions, and 61 million, 21% had more than one. That is a staggering percentage. 21% had more than one chronic condition. In recent estimates, in 2014, nearly 60% of Americans had at least one chronic condition, 42 had more than one, and 12% of adults had 5 or more conditions. And that's pretty much what this little diagram, this little table here is showing, is that, okay, granted, this is in America, 60% of the population. So I think Renelle was saying we were about 14, so 10, so literally, what's that? About 10 people, 8 to 10 people out of us would have like at least one. 42% have more than one, and 12% have 5 or more. And yes, granted, it's an American stat and we're all in SA, but often what happens is that like America sets the standard, usually with the negative stuff, for the rest of the world. I mean, we can see this with like, especially with disease and ailments that have gone into Asia, into China, into Mexico, definitely heading into Africa as well. And it has all to do with really poor lifestyle choices, food choices, and just this kind of like go, go, go type of feeling. So just one last little kind of like stat that I wanted to bring up here is that epidemic levels of chronic inflammation as a cause of disease and death only picked up speed 50 years ago. So prior to 50 years ago, there was inflammation. It was at a smaller percentage. I think in the 1930s, inflammation, if I'm not mistaken, was at about 7%. And we're now kind of like over 60%. 3 out of 5 people today suffer for years or decades before dying a low, long death of chronic inflammation. So 3 out of 5 people really suffer with chronic inflammation. The one sentence that really stood out for me accelerated aging is now starting in utero and in childhood. So that means that the choices that we're making as kind of like women who also might be bringing children into the world is the things that if we don't get ourselves sorted out in utero, we're already causing issues for our future children, for our future kids. And to me, that is extremely, extremely sad to hear and to see. All right. So I'm just going to kind of keep an eye on the chat. All right. Ronelle, is there anything that you're noticing coming up before? Because I can see there's lots there that you've picked up, just that I should keep an eye on.
Okay, alrighty. Yeah, so there's everybody had interesting questions. Pravina wanted to know that, we learn about inflammation, but how to incorporate that into our yoga journey as yoga teachers. Annika about lifestyle choices, they all tie in together then. And then Kush also the causes of inflammation, what causes inflammation. Pira, how to understand and recognize underlying diseases as the basis of, or the basis of underlying diseases being inflammation. And here to learn more about it. We mostly, most of us have inflammation. So those are the key things, what questions that popped up here that I noticed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's great. All right. So we're definitely all on the right track, and me too, which is always great to know. Okay. So what I wanted to maybe just start off with is in the sense that when it comes to inflammation, is that, let me just pop the slide above. We've got kind of like acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. So acute inflammation is literally the inflammation that happens in an acute state. So if there's like a cut or laceration or a stabbing, great, fantastic, or a bit of an allergic reaction or a burn, we all know that kind of like there's that immediate inflammation. You can see it, you can often feel it, and often within a couple of days or even a couple of weeks, it subsides and it leaves the body. So that's kind of acute inflammation. And it's really important to understand acute inflammation, because it's your body saying kind of like, pause, there's an issue. You've got a cut here, best you start addressing it. And it's a chance for us to really listen and to take stock of what's happening. If you've got a big laceration, you're not just going to kind of like carry on hanging up the washing and doing your things. You're actually maybe going to, put a little bit of pressure on it and address it straight away. The problem with chronic inflammation is that chronic means that it is ongoing. So it keeps going and it keeps going. And with chronic inflammation, you don't really notice it. It's kind of very, very much underlying. And then depending on our genetic disposition, the chronic inflammation is going to show up differently. And we can go back to the slide in different ways. So if you've got a genetic disposition for cancer in your family, you might come up and it might show up as a cancer. For others, it might be when you've got too much chronic inflammation in your system, it might be a neurological disease coming through. It might be pulmonary disease. You might, it might show up more as bone or joint disease, a metabolic disease, cardiovascular, so hypertension, stroke, heart failure. And then the big one is autoimmune disease, and we'll get into that because that is where it seems like a lot of people are actually kind of spending a lot of time on differentiating different types of medicine and treatments and what chronic inflammation is saying, and what I'm saying is like, okay, yes, there are all these different parts to chronic inflammation that results, but where are we all the same, and what is the same? And the same is that it all starts with inflammation. That is kind of like the base of it. So instead of kind of like looking at like, okay, where and why are we so different? We actually want to see, okay, where are we all the same? And what is it that we're able to do together that is similar and will help us alleviate the chronic inflammation? And we'll get into that, which Ronelle had mentioned in a couple of the questions. So what I wanted to say is that, there's a lot of genetic testing going on, and there's a lot of chat about genes and figuring out kind of, like how we, what are we disposed to? And it's great to do those kind of testing. But the important thing is that our genes are triggered by the chronic inflammation, and our chronic inflammation affects the epigenetics. And the epigenetics is the environment that our genes are housed in, kind of like the cell structure that our genes are housed in. And if that is healthy and whole, then our genes are not going to express themselves as the cancer or the heart disease or the diabetes or the irritable bowel syndrome. The only times the genes express themselves in their kind of negative way is when the environment that the gene is in is under stress and is not healthy and is not whole. There are obviously, exceptions to the rules here and there, but we've got about 70%, I think the stat is 70% impact on our lifestyle and health choices to affect our epigenetics. So 70% is a large amount of stuff that we can actually do that will prevent us getting chronic inflammation or showing up with high levels of chronic inflammation, which would then trigger the negative expression of genes that we are most likely to see in our family or our ancestral history. All right. So now, with all of that covered, what are the symptoms of chronic inflammation and what does this look like? And I'm actually going to go to a different screen share because I think this will be really helpful, and I'll happily share this. I'll actually, Ronelle's keeping an eye on all your names, and what I'll do is I'll actually happily share this list from Kate with you guys. I'll email it to you afterwards if it's helpful. But what you want to understand is that inflammation isn't just in your physical body. And like as yoga practitioners and teachers, some of us, we know that inflammation can show up in our mind and our emotions as well. And it can show up in our soul. And I just wanted to go through this list because I find that when I went through this, I mean, I thought I was healthy. I kind of like, yes, I had, and those who've been in yoga classes and teaching with me all know that, PMS and heavy periods, and headaches and migraines and, tender breasts, irritated very easily with family members, easily frustrated. And I just thought, that's just a part of me. But actually, I'm healthy. I'm fine. I don't have high blood pressure. I don't have diabetes. I don't have cancer. I don't have any of these things. So actually, I'm healthy. I'm fine. And when I started looking at this list, I was like, oh, shoot, Nina. No, that's not the choice. You actually got quite high levels of inflammation. Or what the hell are you going to start doing about it? So, for example, in your body is that kind of, if inflammation is showing up, it might show up as fatigue. So like literally, who are you if you take out the caffeine out of your day? How exhausted really are you? Do you have any stubborn belly fat, cellulite? Have you got difficulty sleeping? If you're not getting a good 7 hours full consistent sleep, you're not sleeping right. Like you might be getting to bed early, you might be falling asleep, but if you're not getting those good 7-8 hours, you got an issue with sleeping. It might be excess body weight. There might be that feeling of being stuck or heavy. Tongue coating in the mornings. That's why we use our tongue scrapers. Joint pain and stiffness, achy muscles, kind of like that flu-like feeling, and it kind of like just builds and builds with years. Like we kind of think we're okay, we do our yoga, we get like the mobility, but if we don't do our yoga, then we actually really notice that there is a stiffness. Poor digestion, so if there is bloating, if you've got irregularity with your stools, constipation, bad breath, that was another big one for me. I was always so nervous about like hanging out with people and having bad breath. Skin issues and hives, allergies, cravings for processed foods, poor nutrient-based foods is a big one. That is one I would always be the 4 o'clock person in my pantry, looking for cookies, looking for chocolates, just to give me something, to give me a hit. PMS, fibrocystic breast, puffiness, water retention, emotional eating and overeating, headaches, susceptibility to illnesses and viruses, kind of lack of sex drive. So if you're circling any of these, and if you're like me, where you may have circled quite a few, it's just showing that there is an underlying level of inflammation in your body. If you tend towards, if you want to have a look like at your mind, because sometimes our body's fine, sometimes physically our body is actually absolutely fine, and we don't have anything in this list, but if we slip onto our mind, we can actually have inflammation in our mind that affects our body. And I'll get into the mind in another slide in a moment to just show how, like, literally, okay, I'll just tell you now, pretty much, literally our emotions, if we're overthinking and we've got issues with our emotional bodies, it is more toxic to our physiology than literally having like a couple of glasses of wine in the evening. It creates more acidity in your system than having a glass of wine if you're in this constant state of overwhelm or anxiety, low-grade stress, depression, irritability, brain fog, difficulty sleeping, feeling stuck, difficulty making decisions, poor willpower, headaches, mental confusion, poor concentration. And what you usually find is like, if we link this a little bit to Ayurveda, is that kind of the anxiety, overwhelm, that is very much a Vata-based mental disposition. If there's irritability and frustration, that's very much like when your Pitta is out of balance. And if there's just this lethargy and the stagnation and you just want to be like on the couch all day, that's definitely more of like a Kapha imbalance that is there. We can go and have all three of those at any point in time. It's not just because, you know, I'm high in Pitta, I'm only ever going to be irritable and never going to, you know, experience being anxious or feeling depressed. But generally, if we are like a Pitta personality, we'll notice that the irritability is a high one. And if you're constantly irritated with people and things and stuff happening and yourself, there's definitely a level of inflammation in your system. And then the last one that I wanted to address, because maybe your body is fine and maybe you're mentally absolutely stable and there's no inflammation there, it could show up and or in your soul as a sense of like there's a lack of direction, there's a lack of drive, there's just a sense of complacency, hopelessness, feeling of overwhelm, unclear direction, and a disconnect from meaning in your life. So as well as kind of like being trapped in this like consumerism. So if you're feeling that you're kind of like, you know, let me go do some online shopping or let me go to the mall and do some shopping. It's kind of that feeling of where we're just constantly trapped in this consumerism space. So I don't quite want to be the lady of gloom and doom today. That's not the idea of the talk. I do kind of want it to be a little bit more uplifting and positive. But definitely that is, I wanted to bring that to the forefront because it really was it just helped me understand it a lot more. All right, so before I go into addressing kind of each one of these and finding solutions for that, because that's definitely kind of like what I do want to share with you in our chat today, is having a look at this autoimmune disease, because it definitely seems to be a big one. So in a sense, chronic inflammation, like I was saying, it can show up as one of these. So if you have any of these, osteoporosis, type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, there is inflammation in your system, and you definitely want to start addressing it on all three levels, in the body, in the mind, and in the soul, because you can't just, like we know with yoga, you can't just address one area and think that it's going to solve everything else. You actually need to look at all of them and start addressing yourself as a holistic organism that is multifaceted. We can't just ignore the mind. The mind is part of us. If we think that we can just do it via the body, we're really not doing the right thing. So we can't just change like how we're eating and what we're doing. We actually need to change the way we're thinking and the way we are operating in the world. So what I wanted to share with you with regards to autoimmune disease is that there are over 80 autoimmune diseases. I went through the list last night. I couldn't even pronounce, I think like 60% of those that were on the list. There's so many that I hadn't even heard of. And they're all kind of like subdivisions of certain things. An autoimmune disease is when your body's immune system starts attacking and destroying your healthy body tissues by mistake. So when we're in any of the 80, and actually the research is saying that there are now over 120 autoimmune diseases. So if we're in that, it means our body has gone so far that it doesn't even know kind of like who the good guys are and the bad guys are. So kind of my slide here just goes into the whole antigens and antibodies story. Kind of like, we don't actually need to go that deep today. It is there. You can always go through that again. What I do want to share with you when it comes to the kind of the chronic inflammation, it's just like really it gets into our blood vessels, our connective tissue, our endocrine glands. That's where kind of like all the hormones come into effect, the thyroid issues, the Hashimoto's, anything like that. Our joints, our muscles, red blood cells, skin. It affects so many areas and levels of our system. I'm going to just skip over cardiovascular disease because it is a big one. And yes, pretty much it is a big one. So what I wanted to say is like, okay, how do we address inflammation? And to me, it's pretty much we need to live as if we're, going to die tomorrow. So we really need to live life to the fullest. And it doesn't mean, going out and having the chocolate cake and having the red wine and, doing the this and this, but really just, making sure that we live wholly, we're in conversation and communication with those people that are important to us and special to us. We're spending maybe less time worried about food and more time about, finding the stillness within. And then learn as if you were to live forever. And I love that, because if we're constantly learning and empowering ourselves, then we know how to take action and what we're able to do. All right, so let's get straight. Okay, before I go straight into that, into solutions, does anyone have anything they would like to share, add in, ask before we go on? Okay. Speak now or forever hold your peace. All good, Anthea. Fantastic. All right, let's keep going. I will give you some time at the end to ask some questions that we can address. Okay, so in our body, how do we address inflammation in our body? It's kind of like the biggest one. For me, the first thing is healthy lifestyle choices. We need to be making better lifestyle choices for ourselves. And it doesn't mean that we have to be perfect, because then we're getting into a mindset of that is unattainable, because perfection really is unattainable. But just generally, can we do lifestyle habits that are better for us more often than not? And we're aiming for a B-, so like 4-5 days out of the week instead of, 0 or trying to aim for 7. Healthy lifestyle choices, in my opinion, are the 10 habits that we work in and towards in my course. So it's earlier lighter dinner, making sure you have your lunch at midday, early to bed, making sure you get your 8 hours of sleep. I mean, they're simple things, but we're not doing them regularly. Starting the day right with hydrating the body, eliminating, moving the body, getting the prana into our system, finding time to sit in silence, having not necessarily a plant-based diet, but including more variety of nutrition into our bodies. Self-massage, Abhyanga, the most literally effective way that you can calm your nervous system is daily massage. Healthy eating guidelines, where I'll get into that in a moment, with intermittent fasting. Taking care of your senses, all our senses. We take in stimuli all day long, and we really need to protect our senses. And having this way of living life in a much more easeful manner, where we're going with the flow and not against the flow. All right, so that is my number one, is like really living healthy lifestyle ways. And the problem is, like, as yoga teachers and practitioners, we often know what they are, but we're not actually doing them, and we're not doing them more often than we're not doing them. So we kind of like, maybe once a week are doing self-massage, maybe a couple of times a week, having more plant-based variety in our nutrition. We may be meditating, I don't know, 3 or 4 times a week. Maybe you have like a good stretch where you do it for a month and then you fall off the bandwagon, and then you don't do it for like a couple of weeks and then you step on it. So it's kind of like you wanting to go for consistency. It doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be meditating, 2 hours a day, every day. 5 minutes is great, it's fine if that's all you can take, but building that consistency. So for me, healthy lifestyle habits are key, are number one. Healthy food choices, the second thing, moving away from our processed foods, our fast foods. And again, it doesn't mean that we can't go out and we can't have a lovely meal with friends and enjoy a nice luncheon, with the girlfriends here and there. But can we make a healthier choice when we're out? Can we go to a healthier restaurant? Can we make healthier food choices in our home where we control what is in? Can we not bring in the chips and the chocolates into our pantries? Can we go buy the fresh food? Can we make our pots of soup? So can we chop up our veggies, put them right there in the front of our fridge so that they're easily accessible? And if we need to snack on something, we're going to snack on a carrot stick and not go for the box of cookies around the corner. So again, it's not anything you guys don't know, but it's just bringing your awareness and attention to it, so that when you make choices, you're making the better choices more often than not. Big one is hydration, staying hydrated. And for those who joined the clean eating challenge, because I know Cherry was there and Annika, and like a lot of you guys were part of it. Hydration was a big one there. And we realized that as soon as we're hydrated and we're drinking a lot, we actually have a lot less food cravings. And we're actually able to push our intermittent fasting hours and not snacking in between the day a lot more. If we're sipping hot water, our CCFT, sipping water all day, it really, keeping ourselves hydrated makes such a big difference. All right. Intermittent fasting, many of you have joined that workshop that I did, and if you haven't, go back and listen to it, because it's really helpful in understanding intermittent fasting for your dosha, for your body type, how Vatas really need to be in rhythmic eating, and like a 14-10 intermittent fasting is fine for them. Pitters can push that a little more. Cuppers are literally absolutely fine with like 1 or 2 meals. They like to think about food, but they really don't need much to sustain them if they're having a healthy, nutritious meal in the day. Autophagy only kicks in after 13 hours. So we have to get to 13 hours of giving our body a break. And that means that if that's why if we're getting our 8 hours sleep, it's really not difficult to get to 13, 14 hours. And if that's not your norm, if you're an evening grazer or a snacker, start with like 10 hours, then build up to 10 and a half, to 11, to 12, so that you can get to 13, and maybe in 3 or 4 months time, you're getting to 14 hours, and notice how your body feels. So intermittent fasting for the body, when you start to create the space and you give your cells the opportunity to start cleaning house, it makes such a big difference. I just wanted to maybe just show this one. This is kind of like in part 2. But what happens is as the food particles enters the cell, the lysosomes kind of like join with that. And that's where the digestion kind of like happens. And then the little parts are broken down and released. If you think of, if we're constantly eating, if this whole thing is just filled with these little food particles all around, you're putting so much stress on every little cell in your system. You're not actually giving it space to do its job. And there's just going to be so much muck in here. And the poor lysosomes, they can't clean house. And kind of like this works the same as kind of like with regards to food particles, the same as like if there's bacteria or kind of like anything that needs to be broken down by your system. If there's too much of that in there and your system can't break it down, it goes to overwhelm. It goes back to what we were chatting about up here with genes and genetics, in the sense that then when your systems are just overly inflamed, that is where the genes will then start to be expressed as cancer, as your cancer, as your heart disease, whatever it is that your family tends towards, or your ancestors have tended towards. All right. The other thing is that we want our body to be strong and flexible. We want to be moving daily. And for yoga teachers, often we often, maybe we go in and out of having a daily practice. I say that because that's definitely been my story over the last 20 years. Some days, some months, some weeks, years are even good, and there is a daily practice, and sometimes it's just not there. But for me, for so long, my movement has all been about like gentle and opening, and there hasn't really been the strength work or the cardio work. And we need to get our heart rates going. Our bodies do need to have a little bit of that resistance building and happening. Right. So it might just mean that we need to maybe throw in one strength practice a week to start off with, maybe an additional cardio practice a week. Doesn't mean we need to go start running 10Ks after this talk, but maybe it means that we need to do 1 minute of burpees or getting the skipping rope out and doing that. All right. And that is the way of kind of slowly starting to address the body. Practicing the 10 habits is going to literally really start getting you on track with that. And I'll start working with the mind as well. When it comes to the mind, this negative and positive bias plays a big part. There are 3 things that are really important, and I'll get back to negative and positive bias because I'd like to share the next 2 slides with you. But when it comes to the mind, the 3 things, and they literally, it's going to sound silly, need to be done in this order. We need to take responsibility. So we need to take responsibility. All right, so let me just back up a little. So inflammation caused in the mind, again, like I was saying before on that list, it's fear, it's worry, it's insecurity, it's being in this victim mentality, it's irritation, it's resentment. Like I was saying before, that is what causes acidity in the blood faster than alcohol. And the mind can toxify the body faster than anything you do with living in a healthy way. If your mind has got any of those negative emotions, it is going to cause more toxicity in your body than eating a McDonald's burger. I can guarantee you that. And it has this, an inflamed mind has the symptomology of the depression, of the anxiety, and the irritability. Those were the three doshas I was chatting about a little before. And the mental inflammation is so extremely subtle that we don't actually notice it until it's often too late. So what we want to do is the three that were coming up there before is responsibility. What can you take action on today? What is it that you're noticing? If you're noticing that you're irritated, you regularly irritated, this person irritates you, this situation irritates you, that irritation is a big part of your life. You need to address that and take responsibility for it and put measures in place to help with that. If you find that you're always in victim mode, oh, poor me, no one has it as bad as me, I have this problem, I have that problem, no one understands, you need to take responsibility and start moving past that victim mindhood. If there is this fear or this overwhelm, if you find that there is just too much happening in your life, you need to take responsibility to reduce the overwhelm so that there's this. You can't expect anyone else to do it for you. There's literally no one in society. You can't rely on politics, on pharmaceutical industry, anyone else to start taking that responsibility on for you. You're going to have to do it yourself. And what you want to do is literally just notice it, be gentle with yourself, and start taking action. All right, so that's the first thing, is taking responsibility. The second thing is forgiveness. So not holding on to grudges, really letting go, forgiving others and forgiving yourself. When we start doing forgiveness practice regularly, it releases a layer that has just been holding us tight. Maybe it's forgiveness that we've had to do in utero, from when our mothers were pregnant with us, from childhood. I mean, there's so many different levels to forgiveness. There's a lovely practice in Ayurveda called Tarpana, which is kind of like ancestral healing, which you can again Google, and I can give you some insight on that, which is on new moon days to do practices like Tarpana, which is kind of like accessing the ancestors and asking for forgiveness. Right, that's a side that wasn't meant to come in. Anyway, you're getting more than I'd bargained for, than you'd bargained for. And then the third practice is gratitude. So really getting full on gratitude. Once you kind of like gone through responsibility, gone through forgiveness, I mean, and these are kind of like always circulating, just having that gratitude, waking up every morning, really being full with gratitude of what you do have, the people that you do have in your life, the time that you do have, the projects that are working, just really, really get full on gratitude. All right. The important thing that I did want to address now is this positive stresses orientation versus negative stresses. So we often have a lot of positive or negative stresses in our environment, and we want to obviously move towards the positive stresses. Positive stresses are the things that are sometimes hard to do but cause a positive effect, like living like the habits, doing the habits. They're, it's not easy to wake up early in the morning and to, do your yoga practice or a breath body practice or to go for a run. But if you do that consistently, it's going to have a positive effect of you long term. Kind of like the negative stresses are if there's, you're feeling down, you're feeling sad, and you go for a chocolate or a cookie instead of actually sitting with it and understanding with it, and maybe going and asking someone for a hug or a conversation or a cup of tea. So when we orientate towards and we dwell on the negative stresses, and there's so many things in our lives that cause negative stresses, and yes, they're there, and we're not trying to say that they're not valid or a part of life, but we don't want to spend a lot of our mental time worrying and being in that space. And if we can, we want to try and change something towards a positive stress. So instead of kind of like worrying about work, if we sort out our lifestyle, story, we can maybe get a promotion at work because we are now being more effective, more productive at work, which bosses will hopefully be able to notice and see. So it kind of like is that kind of thing. So negativity bias is when inflammation overloads the system. Negative emotions overwhelm cognitive function. The person develops a negative bias. Negativity bias is our proclivity to tune into negative information far more than positive information. And we all know friends and people like this who kind of like, it's like the Debbie Downers. There's always issues, there's always problems, there's always something. And we want to move away from looking to those negative stimuli. We really don't want to dwell on those in our everyday life. We really want to start looking at the positive, hanging out with people who are more in that positive space, so that we feel uplifted and we feel motivated to take right action, to take responsibility for the choices that we have made or have caused us to issues that have into our lives, come up into our lives. All right. Soul, spirit, information. So the last one, for me, it is all about not having purpose or direction. And that is why I'm absolutely loving the work that I am doing, because to me, it's so much more meaningful than just teaching yoga, which is lovely and wonderful. And I've loved it. And I still love teaching yoga. But being able to help people out of stress, lethargy, being stuck, not really knowing where they are, has given me so much meaning and so much more direction, and it has uplifted me myself. And so that's what I can definitely, what I've noticed for myself. And I didn't even know that it was inflammation by not following my life's kind of purpose and dream, but it definitely was. And now that I'm fully into it in this path for the moment, I've just noticed how much more kind of like in the positive bias I am. And how much less stress there is, because I'm not constantly worried about what workshop am I going to be putting out? What am I going to do? How am I going to reach my students? What do my students want? I know exactly where I'm going, what I want to do, and how to help and reach people. So it's, again, having the purpose, having the meaning, having that passion for life. In our habits, it's the habit 10 of easeful living, going with the flow and not against the flow, and always feeling like you're in this sense of balance and harmony, and like that is there. Right. So I can also share this circadian rhythm wheel with anyone who wants it, with the 10 habits, so that you can literally tick off, like, where are you? Are you at 1, or are you really getting to bed before 10 p.m. every night? And you can kind of like see which habit you're not too good at. So if you want this one and the chronic inflammation one, you can always just pop me an email, and I'll definitely happily share those with you. So for me, the easiest way to address this has been getting into the right community. So finding people that do the behaviors and the habits that you know that you want to do. So if you know that meditation is not happening for you, it might mean getting into a community of meditators. If you know that maybe intermittent fasting is, you're doing everything else and intermittent fasting is not happening, getting into a community of people who do intermittent fasting. If you maybe do not know what your soul purpose is, the direction you want to go, maybe finding someone who can support you in that way. What I think I might do is, if I get a chance on Sunday, is record a little lesson on the 5 people exercise, where you literally look at the different areas in your life and the 5 people that can support you to get to where it is you want, who are doing the practices and activities that you're wanting to embody. So pretty much what I wanted to share and let you guys know before I'll stay on, because we're nearly on the hour, and I'll stay on for an extra 10 minutes and answer any specific questions on chronic inflammation. But for those who do need to leave at 10, the course that I've created, Shifting from Chaos to Rhythm, which is a 12-month program, is a really lovely community that we're starting to grow that lives these 10 habits. And we do it in a very gentle, easy manner. I mean, Ronelle and Andy, who've already been going with me for 8 months, they'll already be able to, I mean, it's just amazing to see the transformation and shifts that they've experienced over that time. And it's not about making like these radical changes overnight. It's about making like little changes every week, every day, over time, because when we start working with our life, our current lifestyle, and just shifting our trajectory, like literally 5 degrees, and seeing where that leads us. And then that'll kind of like make us shift it another 5 degrees eventually. When we start making those small little changes over a year, it results in such big improvements to our health and our lifestyle. So my next group is starting on Monday, the 4th of July. You guys are all invited to join our orientation call for free if you are somewhat interested, intrigued to see what it's all about, what we cover, what happens. And if you enjoy that orientation call, if you think it might be something that you would like to look at joining, we can have a conversation afterwards. We can see if this is the group, the right group and the right time for you. Maybe it might mean starting at a later stage, but at least you'll get an insight into how it is we work in the group and what it is that we cover. So you're all welcome. Just pop me an email. I'll give you the links to join in on Monday. It's at 8:45. And then the exciting news is that I am qualifying this month. It's July, so I get to do my final exam, which means that from next month, I will be fully qualified to teach this perfectly. And my normal rate will then be the 26,000 Rand for the full year course. What I am going to be offering to you guys still is that if you do decide, or we do decide that it's going to work for you to start in July, literally it's going to be about half price still, my pilot price, which is about 14,500 Rand for the year. The bonuses come to like a good 10,000 Rand. It's really, really worth it. So if you're looking to be a part of a community, then we definitely come join our orientation call, and you'll see exactly what it is we kind of get up to in that, and if it's something that would work for you. So that was inflammation in a very quick nutshell. I do still have part 2, which is like all on the fat cells, which Ronelle had asked about. We were meant to do that on Thursday, but kind of there was too much load shedding going on. So maybe we'll do that in a future workshop. All right. So if anyone has any questions or comments on anything that we did, let me know. You're welcome to unmute yourself. I know it's on the hour, so if you do need to go, thank you for being here and for participating. I really appreciate it. And yeah, cool. I'll have a look in the messages so long, the chat, but if anyone wants to unmute and give some insight, then let me know, and I'll address that.
Nina, it's Kush. Thank you so much. That was very enlightening.
You're welcome.
Especially on the autoimmune part, you know. There's a little bit of a family sort of genetic thing there. So I'm very keen to take you up on the 10 habits.
Excellent.
I've got load shedding, so I've got my video off, but there I am. So yeah, it'll be great to take the conversation further. I've got to run, but thank you again so much.
Perfect, Kush. I'll keep in contact with you now, and we'll see if 8:45 Monday works for you, but if not, we'll make another plan. I'll keep you definitely posted on that. Lovely, lovely. Cool. Lost control of, what's that, Cherry? Lift it up a bit. Oh, of your mouse. I love it, Cherry. Okay, I wonder if I can unmute you. No, I wonder if that works. No. Okay. Oh, Cherry, you're hilarious. Lovely. I'm glad it worked for you. We'll do like sign language. And laughing, guys, laugh a lot. Hang out with little kids that make you laugh, or anyone. You're welcome, Cherry.
Thanks, Nina. That was great. Strong reminder to more meditation, join a meditation group, reduce that anxiety. So thank you.
Good, Colleen. I'm glad you've got like an idea of what the next step should be.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Brilliant. Cool. Piera, I saw you unmuted.
Thank you so much, Nina. Yes, that was really interesting, and that the list was quite eye-opening because there were, as you said, quite a number of things that were ticked there. And yeah, it's as you say, we do know what the things are that we need to do. It's just, making sure that we do them. And yeah, I think that what you said about even if you can't do everything, just do little bits and be consistent. So that was a very good reminder. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Yeah, it is. I mean, also the first time I had a look at that list, I was like, oh, really? But I don't have heart disease and I don't have diabetes, so I'm actually fine. And then I was like, oh, but all of this other stuff, when that compounds, that's going to, lead to X, Y, and Z. And I must say, for me, kind of like being in community, like, we're catching up now together as a group, is so uplifting, and it just gets you in the right direction, gets you motivated to take action in what is going to be helpful. So yeah, and it doesn't need to be big, difficult changes, like tiny little changes that we do regularly in the right direction are going to have a huge, long lasting impact. So that is great. Yeah. Anyone else wanting to say anything or have a question?
Okay, Nina, if I can maybe get in here as well.
Yes.
In the course of the year, one of the habits that Nina teaches is journaling as well. And she makes it really easy just to journal 3 things before you go to sleep at night. I'm not a big journaler at all. In fact, I don't have, always an excuse. But then when you went to the last bit of the slides about how to prevent mental inflammation, the journaling actually came up because Nina advocates to journal 3 things, or have your win, journal down the win, maybe 3 wins for the day, and then 3 goals for the next day. And it's actually, it ties in with preventing inflammation. The first thing to be to take responsibility. So it means an acknowledgement of what you are. That could be your win. If we should journal tonight, then we took responsibility of our bodies and we attended this lecture today. So that's a huge win. And then to forgive, maybe something came up and we couldn't attend it, to let it go. And then to express gratitude as well. And then the next day then would be the forgiveness, to make it up. So it would be first taking responsibility, we are attending the meeting. Gratitude, thank you, we did attend the meeting. And then forgiving, alrighty, but then tomorrow we will listen to the recording. So the things that would curb or prevent inflammation ties up a little bit in this journaling practice as well that we do at night, just by letting go and starting over again, but also acknowledging the things that we have done, to recognize, take a responsibility for where we are. Anyway, that's how I saw it.
Renal, thank you so much for that insight and bringing that up, because it is such an important aspect, this journaling. And I got this from the course that I'm in now with Kate. where one of our course books was The Gap and the Gain. I put the link with Ben Hardy in the chat if anyone's interested. And it's not a difficult book to read and to go through, but pretty much what he suggests, and it's like Renal was saying, is that you do, in the evening, you've got your little notebook and you write down 3 things that you achieved that day. And then you write down 3 things that you want to achieve tomorrow. So it's not like a whole long journaling process with regards to, you know, like, how am I feeling? And and, you know, which is all lovely to do, but often we don't have time to do that every night. And he's just saying, literally, before you go to sleep, 3 things that you achieved, you know, today. So it might be your yoga practice. It might be finishing off a project. It might be, you know, the fact that you drank your 2 liters of water. Whatever it was that you needed to do, or maybe you had rehab exercises that you needed to do because of a frozen shoulder and you did those. And then you write down 3 things that you want to achieve the next day. Again, maybe you want to do your exercises, your shoulder exercises again. Maybe you want to, I don't know, cook a big pot of soup for the day. And maybe you want to just do half an hour of a project that you hadn't been planned on doing. And it's not like a to-do list of like everything that you need to do. You literally only allowed to put in 3 things that you've achieved and 3 things that you're going to do, not more than that, because then it leads you to overwhelm. And when you start checking that every day, that you're keeping note of that, it is so positive and so uplifting, because you just see how much you're actually achieving and doing, and you're guided into the direction of what it is you're wanting to do. Like Renal was saying, as like, I'm also not a big journaler, she's not a big journaler. This easy practice has been, I think, a big shift for both of us. So I just thought, yeah, definitely just give you a bit more info on that while you're here, because it was a big game changer, I think, for us. Cool. All right. Any other questions or insights? All good? All good? I feel like an auctioneer, going once, going twice, any more, unmuting, going for the 3rd time, and we are done and out and sold for today. All right, guys, it has been absolutely fantastic spending some time with you, well, I didn't actually really get to know you, but I've seen where you guys are all from. Pop me an email if you would like to get that chronic inflammation list, if you want to get the login details for Monday's call to see how we work together, and if maybe joining our group might work for you. And, you know, it might not even be for a full year. Maybe you just want to do 1 trimester and just give it a test to see if that works. Pretty much, I'm pretty convinced that if you're going to do 1 trimester, you're going to stay with for the year, because we just have so much fun together. But if you're uncertain, if you're hesitant, yeah, definitely give me a shout and we can make a plan. All righty, guys. Take care. Have a fantastic, fantastic day. Lots and lots of love. Namaste.
Thanks, Nina. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, Renal.
Thanks, everybody. Bye, everybody. Bye.